Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to 2-Bit Idiots. This is episode 4, I believe, Hats. Is that right? Yep. With us today, we have Andy21. What's your Twitter handle, Andy?
AP_Bitcoin.
AP_Bitcoin. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. So Andy and I have had a bit of back and forward over Twitter over the last, I don't know, Andy, maybe 12 months?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. I don't even know where that's started particularly, do you?
I think I started following you, and there's a good volume of tweets coming through, so just saw the engagement and plenty of things to respond to and chat about. So I think we just started talking there, and it worked out that we were both in the same time zone and in Australia, and really, for me, it was just about reaching out to people who were also interested in Bitcoin and relatively new to it from last year, and was aware of it from back in 2017. But really took hold in probably the depths of the COVID crash last year, and just spent a lot of time learning about it and getting to know people in the ecosystem.
We're a pretty similar time frame then, because that was my entry too, was sort of February, March 2020. So that was we're both fairly green, I guess.
Yeah, or less beaten down, or one of those.
Yeah.
One of those. Oh, so obviously we're very professional, Andy. I asked you about, just before we came on the pod, if we could do a timestamp for a particular currency, and I then forgot to ask. Do you want to give us a currency, and we'll do a price stamp for that just now?
Sure, Singapore dollars.
All right, so we're on Bitbo, and it's $59,381.90. And we are, 3.7% up on the day. Another good day.
Always a good day. All right. Well, Andy, tell us, can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, your background and what first brought you to Bitcoin? I know you just mentioned 2017 was your first kind of intro to it, but when did you actually start taking it seriously?
Really, at the start of last year when COVID hit, I think everybody that I know really began to start taking stock of what was going on. Like, oh my God, we're in lockdown and there's this crazy thing happening and the markets have crashed. And it really, for me, I just started watching some content on YouTube, and at the time, started seeing things from Raoul Pal on Real Vision, and him talking about Bitcoin, and it really started piquing my interest. I was like, I remember this from like the last bull run, but never really got into it, and then just started looking into it and trying to understand what was going on in the markets, and really realized I just didn't understand money and didn't really understand macroeconomics, and I just found it fascinating. So really fell down the rabbit hole, hard and quickly, and just started consuming as much content as I could to understand more about macroeconomics. And the more I began to understand that and what the central banks were doing and money printing and the impact that has, it really kind of led me to Bitcoin, and as a solution to a lot of the problems that I was beginning to learn about. So I just started putting my toe in the water and buying, a few $100 at a time, and just beginning to get comfortable with it. And I guess, long journey from there all the way through to, being more sophisticated about how I'm investing in it and what I'm doing with it. I don't trade. I'm absolutely a maxi. I don't touch, shit coins or anything like that. I've very much come around to the way of thinking that this is a long-term savings solution for me, and it's really quite genuinely opened my eyes, not just to the financial benefits of it, but also, all the socioeconomic benefits and everything else. So, really kind of fell hard for it, and hopefully learned pretty quickly. I work in professional services, and have a lot of fun doing that. And this was a really nice kind of counter kind of set of information and learnings that was completely outside of what I normally do day to day, which I've just found fascinating.
So can I go back a bit then? So did you think you understood money, and then you just, and like myself, I thought I had a good grasp on it and then realized I didn't really know very much at all? Or did it just not really, I mean, it was, something that you used every day, and you just assumed that it would always be the way it is? I mean, so what was your understanding before you found Bitcoin, and did you feel like there was something wrong, or were you not aware of it at all?
I don't think I was aware of it at all, particularly. I mean, I've always been relatively hand to mouth in terms of my relationship with money. I've always done okay. I have a decent job, and I've never been, in a particularly hard up way. So I never really gave it much thought. And, I think as I get older and I've got a couple of kids, it began to weigh on me a little bit more about my future and their future. And I think coming from the UK, where pensions are optional, I never had a pension in the UK, and coming over to Australia since 2008, you build up this amount of funds for your retirement. But so I never really thought about it much, and thought that would kind of take care of me in later life. I've never really invested in property. I've, like I say, always lived, pretty hand to mouth. So I think when COVID hit, it was a bit of a shock to my system as to how am I looking after myself financially? Am I doing the right thing by my kids? Am I putting enough away in case of a rainy day? Do I have sufficient funds to survive, like losing a job and not having any money for 6 months? So all of those questions were kind of running rife at that time, which really kind of led me down the path to then actually beginning to understand money and what inflation does to it, and how that's a stealth tax, as well as interest rates being terrible. And a bunch of colleagues were fairly heavily into the stock market, and that kind of I was like, well, should I put my money there? And the more you kind of learn about how the markets are accelerating and how much whether they're expensive and whether shares are expensive, and started looking into all of that, and then really found Bitcoin and went, actually, no, this is much more interesting to me. It's something that I can philosophically understand and believe in. I could just go and dump money in companies, but really that's, I don't feel like I'm connected to that in any way. And I don't know enough necessarily to deep dive on various stocks or ETFs or any of that stuff like my colleagues were. I actually felt like I had a much more clear affinity with Bitcoin, and could understand the origins of it and the problems it's trying to solve or does solve. So the more I've learned, the more I felt like increasingly that's where I needed to be putting my money and start actually saving sensibly. So I've really gone from being, high time preference to low time preference, and being able to put my money away and not just frivolously spend it on stupid stuff. Like it's been a really interesting journey from that regard. It's really changed my relationship with money.
I mean, you've gone quickly. I mean, we'll get to sort of, we're going to go towards self-managed super, stuff like that as well, and near the end of or further on the conversation maybe, but you've gone quickly from, in a period of 18 months to 24 months or something like that, from sort of nothing to everything. So where, I guess, even if I go further back, what was the awareness in like 13, 14, 15? Was there any awareness at all? Like you'd heard the word, and you just never looked, or?
Look, I kind of heard of it. I was a gamer when I was younger, and into things like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. So I was always very familiar with digital currency and the trade economy, even the black market outside of Warcraft, buying I guess what you'd call NFTs now. So interestingly, I kind of understood it, and I've always worked in the in and around the IT industry. So that's not unfamiliar for me, and technology is what I do day to day. So from that regard, I'd heard of it, but I didn't really pay it much attention. But it was really the bull run the big bull run in 17, 18 that caught my attention more, and obviously it was in the public eye a lot more, and there were a few people that were friends of friends that were investing in it, and kind of speculatively going in at $20,000 and going, well, this is going to go to the moon, and obviously it didn't. So I think at that point and the crash, I just kind of wrote it off and didn't really think about it again, like I say, until the COVID crash. Really.
Yeah. So I guess as far as timeline goes, we're very similar. And as I said, you seem to kind of develop into a maxi fairly quickly. I feel like I did fairly quickly, but then I had hats. Did I dox you before? I'm terrible at that.
Okay, we'll be that.
Yeah, but I had hats to kind of really guide me, I suppose, a little bit, or just steer me in the right direction. Did you have anyone in particular, or a couple of people that helped you along your journey, I suppose?
No, not outside of consuming content from all the kind of usual sources, whether it's Stefan Liviera or what Bitcoin did, or any of those things. And you kind of go through waves of depths of understanding of Bitcoin, I think. And so I've just consumed a lot of content. Like I'll spend hours and hours a day watching stuff. Like Simply Bitcoin's probably that starts my day every day now. It's just that the guys there are just really smart about their understanding of how it all fits together, and I find them very interesting to consume. But it's really been a gradual kind of. I mean, you say it's rapid in 18 months. To me, it's been. I guess it's gone very quickly, but I don't know how many hundreds of hours I've spent, watching content and developing and understanding, and it can be difficult at different points, right? I think, I now understand multi-sig. Like if you'd have shown that to me 12 months ago or even 3 months ago, I'm like, oh my God, how does that work? And just really couldn't wrap my head around it. So it really takes, I think, quite a lot of effort to consume and learn and understand. And I found, there's great content like Parker Harris and others that, just put out a lot of great content that you just got to learn. You've got to put the time in.
So what I'm trying to think, what are you coming at it from a technical angle? Like you can understand it technically. So therefore that side of it was easier for you, and the bit that you had to learn was the money side, or like what is
probably
it?
The other way around.
Okay. So what is it that's causing?
Sorry, you go.
Oh no, what is it? What I'm really interested in, what it is that is making this kind of all consuming for everybody. You're saying you've consumed hundreds of hours. I'm morning to night, really have, but for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. See, I feel like I'm pretty hardcore into it, but I'm nothing compared to you.
No, I literally changed my life to basically understand Bitcoin better. That's never happened to me before on anything, right? And I'm really interested.
Yeah,
I'm interested in why people do that, or if they even know. I don't really fully understand why I do it. Is it the opportunity, or is it the hope, or what is it?
I think it would be naive to say that it wasn't the opportunity to start with. I think the idea of not making a fast buck, but being able to invest money and see a sensible return, particularly with everything that's going on. Like, if I put 10 grand in a savings account with a local bank, I wouldn't get anything back. Like you might earn $1 a year or something ridiculous. Even high interest savings accounts. I think that was another thing back at that time. There were a bunch of neobanks that had launched in Australia that I found that interesting as well, because for Australia, it was quite forward thinking that these technology companies could become neobanks and start up, based around savings accounts initially. But then, you look at their interest rates and it's a joke. Like it was 3% or something, and then it drops down to 2 or a half, or like it's basically nothing, and then they go bankrupt or exit because it's just not a viable business to pay interest to anybody. So I think seeing that and understanding that and working in the industry that I do around technology and finance, like I just found it fascinating as to how do you invest your money? Like if you're accumulating cash, how do you invest it So A, that it's safe, but B, that you get a return. And I think part of the fascination for me is Bitcoin, being what it is. It's a non-tangible digital currency, savings technology. Like beginning to understand the technical aspects of it, the hard money aspects of it, the ability to move it anywhere very quickly, and that it's all your own control. Your own keys, your own money. I just found all of that in combination fascinating. That just makes me understand that there's something new to learn every day about it. So I think the intellectual curiosity is really important, as well as the opportunity around it as well. And certainly I want to be in a position where I'm investing in something that means that I am better off in 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, than I am today.
Yeah. So how about your family and friends? How on board are they with your Bitcoin passion?
So I've definitely orange pilled a few, and a couple of them are certainly sitting on a stack and shitcoining at the same time, which clearly you try and steer them away from, but everyone has to go down that path for themselves and learn why or why not. And then there's other friends who you get so consumed by it all, you can't help talking about it. Like if you're having a beer with a mate, there is no way it doesn't come up in conversation somehow. So there's a few people that I'm friends with who are also Bitcoiners, but we got to it completely independently, and like, oh, thank God. Like, I've got a mate here who I haven't spoken to for a while, but we caught up due to some work stuff, and we ended up talking about it. And then he's talking about how do we start Bitcoin mining on a rural property with solar power. So like stuff like that's just hilarious to me.
Yeah, we are having the same conversations. I mean, those conversations are exactly what we've had. Like how do we go about that? So did you avoid the shit coins completely yourself? Or
so
you don't have to answer that, by the way, if you don't want to.
No. Don't have to answer anything really, but
yeah, no, it's fine. So I bought a couple of ETH very early days. And then as I kind of developed what I was watching on YouTube and the podcasts I was following, it very quickly dawned on me that it was a very different thing, and it wasn't the thing that I'm looking for. And your learning then develops and matures around shitcoins, and you just go, well, fine, if people want to do that, then that's out on the risk curve, and that's their prerogative, and good luck to them. But I think as everybody says, shitcoins are all designed to separate you from your Bitcoin, and my intention is to stack as hard as possible and not be separated from any of my Bitcoins. So.
Yeah, it's
great answer.
I think potentially, I'm trying not to be controversial, I guess. I think potentially there's some technically interesting things that are happening on some projects, and I think it would be foolish for people to just disregard that. But if the problem that anybody's trying to solve is the problem of money, which there's a huge money, that's the biggest problem we have, there is nothing else even trying to fix that problem. So maybe something else.
But are there some that are purporting to solve that problem?
Yes.
There's got to be out of all those. Yeah.
But then you just get into centralization to decentralization, and you very quickly knock that one on its head. So so there may be other things that are
even like the DeFi, everything that's purporting to be DeFi is really CeFi because it's centralized, not decentralized.
I've never understood that concept. Like they're talking DeFi, but like none of it is.
It's not. It's centralized.
Bitcoin is the DeFi.
What was it? Solana last week going down for 8 hours. Well, try turning Bitcoin off for 8 hours. Like it's not going to happen. Like it is properly decentralized. So part of this journey, you kind of get into building your own nodes, and really enjoyed doing that using Umbrel and Raspberry Pi, and that takes you down a different rabbit hole of how it all functions and being able to validate your own transactions, and so that stuff is really interesting. But you look at all the shitcoins and you go, well, what problem are you trying to solve? Like there may be stuff that's out there that's interesting, but it's certainly not solving the money problem that I saw for myself, and it certainly won't help me. I might be able to increase my wealth quickly if I timed something right, but I haven't got the time to work out which ones are going to go up when and by how much, or, even if ETH is going to outperform Bitcoin in the bull run, well, that's great. But at the same time, it forked the other week. Like, how can you trust something that that behaves that way? And, you see them changing the whole way, all the monetary rules around the platform as well. And I'm like, well, that to me isn't something that's stable and, a place to store your wealth. So,
yeah, it's a horse race, really. It's gambling on a horse. And yeah, you could have some knowledge. You could have some knowledge about horses, but if the race doesn't happen, it doesn't matter, right? That's a bad analogy, but you get the point, right?
To use the analogy, if I went to a race course, like, I wouldn't know the first thing about any of the horses, and all I'm doing is having a punt. And that's fine if I want to have a punt with $100, but it's not fine if I want to, punt my whole wealth. So.
Yeah, you store your family's wealth into the future. Exactly. Yeah.
But you've still got, to stick with that analogy, you've still got your bookies and your diehards that are at the track every day, betting on this one, that one, because of conditions and all that kind of stuff. So they're the day traders.
Always wins.
They're the day traders.
The bookie always wins, right?
The bookie always wins. That's right.
And the gambler only tells you their winning story.
Exactly. That's right.
We've all gambled at some stage, and what makes you a gambler is not losing, it's winning, right? We've all got a winning story, and we like to tell it. And that's what I see on Twitter with all the shitcoins, is that people are telling their winning story. But what they're not telling you is everything else that runs beside that. I mean,
totally.
I watched, so I'm late 15, I think I was when I first bought Andy. And I didn't understand it properly, to be honest. And I watched it go up and down and whatever. So I was buying all over the place and spending and whatever. And watching it go down was difficult. Watching it go from sort of 18,000 down to 3 was really difficult. Because you've got this conviction.
Did you have that conviction at that point? Do you think?
I don't know. I mean, it's certainly grown since, but I mean, I was confident, and I'm constantly being proven wrong by the market, and I'm having to question, and the quality of content out there, it was available, but it was harder to find, and it was very fringe. Yeah. So whereas now, even though you might consider, like, I don't know, the Swan Lounge or Twitter Spaces or Peter McCormack to be fringe, they have a level of sophistication about them where it's sort of acceptable to place some faith for a lot of people. But so the level of information now, I think it makes it a lot easier to become more convicted. But also there's a shitload of other information from these other thousands of coins that I don't understand. I'm not fully understanding how people, when they come in, avoid it. Is it just a case of luck? You come in on the right thing, or it's intellectual curiosity, or?
I think for me, like, I watched a bunch of them early days when I was getting into it. And, Lark Davis is a good example of, somebody who, talks very well about Bitcoin, but also, like, sells the shit out of a load of shit coins. And you start off watching him, and they're very good at marketing what they do and the way they sell and all of that stuff. And eventually, I think if you go down the rabbit hole far enough and you learn enough about Bitcoin, you realize that they're all shitcoiners, and you just stop watching their content. So there's a lot of that's going to be down to, like, the YouTube algorithm, that you start watching stuff and you get more sophisticated about your use of YouTube, and you start, like, saying, don't recommend this channel and don't recommend that channel. And the ones that you watch kind of lead you to the better content. So I think it becomes an iterative thing, because it's almost impossible to avoid shitcoining when you're into Bitcoin, because it all gets lumped together. But I think, if you're honest with yourself and you understand what it is you're trying to achieve and learn, it becomes apparent that shitcoining is just a waste of time. So that's, I don't think you start out as a maxi, but you end up as a maxi if you're honest with yourself.
I used to get in my Twitter feed the promoted Ripple things. Yep. I don't get them anymore. So they kept coming up, and I'd report them as spam or whatever it was. Just and I don't, maybe 3 times. Don't get it. I don't think I'll get any shitcoins in my Twitter feed
as adverts.
As an advert.
Well,
either that or I'm just like now blinking and I just don't see them. I don't know.
Or we're waiting for a full bull run to run properly,
and then we'll get them
to have a huge amount of disposable money, money that they can spend
Yeah.
on adverts. I don't know, but I mean, I found. Are you a big podcast listener, or is it
Yeah.
YouTube? Do you tend to be YouTube?
Well, I tend to watch most of them on YouTube, but I will listen to podcasts as well, like if I'm in the car or whatever. So
yeah, because it was the podcast. I think the podcast for me helped me filter out a lot of things, because you subscribe to a pod and you've got 10 that you've got and you listen to them, and I think you can avoid some of the stuff on you, because YouTube you can very much watch a cat video and you're down a rabbit hole and you've no idea how you got there, whereas the pods I don't think do that quite so much. So I think maybe that's
I don't know,
more helpful.
It's a good point, like to say that it's almost like its own little universe bubble, that we're in, or your shitcoin a friend is in. And I'm always thinking, why is he not seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
But why, equally he could be saying, why is he not seeing what I'm seeing with whatever shitcoin?
I mean, fairly consistently, my shitcoiner friends, part of their route in, they will subscribe to like a Telegram group or a whatever, where they give them trading mechanisms for and trading advice and timings and other things for them to go and trade Ripple or Cardano or whatever, and they're doing it to get more Bitcoin. But I think they just haven't seen the arse fall out of their shitcoins yet, to learn that actually it's going to cost you Bitcoin in the long run.
Yeah, so everybody, that's what I've said to you early on, like everybody needs a kick in the teeth. To actually.
You said that a couple of times actually, and I think you're actually you actually really want me to get.
I do. I do want you to get a bit of a kick in the teeth, just so that.
Well, again, I started in February 2020, and then March hit.
Yeah.
That said, I wasn't heavily in, but it was a pretty early kind of a bit of a glove slap, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. It's difficult when you sort of encourage somebody to join in and then they immediately lose some money. I mean, that's quite a hard, because you got to answer the questions.
I've got definitely orange pilled a bunch of people, and I very strongly caveat with do your own research. Like, don't trust me.
Yeah.
Like, I might have been lucky when I got in, but then, all I'm actually doing is dollar cost averaging, not necessarily every day, but certainly once a week or once a fortnight. And therefore, that volatility kind of hits me less. But my advice is always do your own research. Like, here's some really good resources to go and read and understand, whether it's 21 Lessons or hope.com or whatever else. Go and listen to Michael Saylor speak. Every time I'm feeling down on myself because the market's volatile down, go watch a Michael Saylor video and you just buy some more. Like, it's really hard not to.
Yes.
He's a great communicator, and he's very convincing. But also it's really easy to sell a product that you believe in and you're telling the truth. Like, that's the easiest product. Yeah. You're happy to do that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some people.
I keep checking myself. Am I like turning into a conspiracy theorist and all of this stuff because of everything I'm learning? And am I doing the right thing? Like, I believe it so strongly, and I've got such high conviction with it that I can ride, even the volatility recently, from 64 down to 30 odd and everything else. I have to keep checking myself and going, is this real? Like, am I really this early? Like, does the majority not actually understand what's going on? And then I only have to look back 18 months and go, yeah, they don't, because I didn't. And, I consider myself a reasonably intelligent person who can understand complex, issues. And I clearly didn't 18 months ago, and now I do a lot. So, it's just such a fascinating time.
Yeah.
And even, I would argue that, if 1% of the world are involved in some capacity, I would argue that 1% of that 1% actually know what they're talking about. They really fully understand. I would struggle to even put myself there, even though I've been doing it for so long, because there's so much to know. And as you say, there's so much to learn. So really, we are incredibly early and it's very difficult to wrap your head around that.
Yeah, and I think as a species, we're also wired for short-term gain or short-term feedback. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of people that are, buying Bitcoin that just do not see or aren't interested in seeing what the actual global long-term humanitarian benefits it can actually have,
or they don't have the luxury. Sorry, please, Andy.
Yeah, I just think, even just in the last couple of weeks with the 10% odd decline, which is laughably small compared to others. I was, I think Will Clemente and some of the other guys who do the on-chain metrics and analysis were saying something like 80-90% of all of the coins that were sold through this dip were like less than a couple of weeks old in terms of when they last moved. So it's all very short-term stuff. So all the whales have been accumulating through this recent dip, even since the last peak. So I think short-termism and being able to view things on a longer time horizon isn't natural necessarily, which I guess we'll get to it, but that's kind of what led me with the self-managed super fund to that longer time horizon with your pension and when you can retire and how that all works, really kind of led me to, well, how am I investing for that part of my future?
Well, please go let's go there.
Yeah,
we can jump back and forward. So
no, that's a good segue actually.
Yeah, I mean, so what was your thought process? You had you'd bought on exchange, moved to wallet, run your own node. It was the sort of next progressive step, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, you see all of the back and forth on Twitter and are you all in? Well, how all in are you? Like, are you 50% all in, or are you all in? And I'm kind of looking at my investments and where it is. And obviously in Australia with superannuation, 10% of your annual salary every year is committed to your superannuation. It's paid by your employer. So I'm looking at my superannuation fund, and it's okay. It's been accumulating since 2008. So there's 12, 13 years worth of funds in there. And it's sitting with a standard Australian superannuation firm. And since the start of the COVID thing 18 months ago and getting into Bitcoin, I started getting a lot better about budgeting and tracking and understanding the ups and downs of everything that I have, and basically with a view to how much more money can I put into Bitcoin and how hard and fast can I keep saving. And I've got this pool of money sat with Australian Super, and I actually emailed them and said, so can I invest some of this in Bitcoin? And they came back with a classic catalog of FUD around terrorism and nefarious purposes and fraud, and it was just a horror show of an email. Exactly. And I just thought, well, this is bollocks, and I'm looking at what my super's returning every month and the amount that I'm putting into it and the gains that I'm getting. And don't get me wrong, investing since the start of COVID has been a good time to invest. And I'm fully well aware that the arse can fall out again, and it can do an 80% drawdown. And then, it might be another 4 years before it goes back up again. So I understand that volatility, and, you can always be the most confident person in the world when you've seen your wealth go up or your savings go up like we have since February, March last year. But anyway, I looked at my super fund and I'm like, well, I don't want to leave it with you guys anymore. I don't actually know where you're investing it. The funds are always very opaque about where your money actually is. They're usually investing the pooled funds with organizations like Vanguard, who produce a lot of ETFs and other things. They usually move their money to those kinds of funds, and then you get your return or whatever. So anyway, I was seeing it averages out at about between 10 and 14% a year with a super fund in a good in a good run. Doesn't always go up, but that's a good sort of average, 10 to 14%. I thought, well, I've got all this money sitting here. How do I actually get it out of this standard super fund and get it into Bitcoin? And what mechanism can I do that? So should I, this is my pension fund, I'm going to retire with it. Should I be doing that? This feels really risky. But is it, is it risky it being there earning 10 to 14%? Or, should I go invested in Bitcoin and with a compound 213% a year for 10 years, isn't it stupid not to put it there? So I think the more maxi I got, the more convinced I got, the more I looked into it. Happened to time it really well. I talked with a friend who had a self-managed super fund. The process for that, he said, go and get an advisor and they'll help you do it all. And I thought, well, I can work it out for myself. So anyway, I did. It's a pretty tortuous process to set one up. It takes about 6 weeks. It's very linear. You have to, do a whole ton of paperwork in a very linear fashion. And anyway, it's not complicated. It's just a bit drawn out. So at the end of that 6 week period, I had my own self-managed super fund. You have to set up your own company and all these other things. And I was able to move my funds out of the super fund into my self-managed super fund, set up a broking account, and the local laws mean that you have to use a local Australian exchange. So did all of that and managed to move 100% of my funds into Bitcoin.
Wow.
And then move them. This is when I got into multi-sig and working out the sensible trade-offs of multi-sig and the security of all of that, and managed to obviously then move them from the exchange into a multi-sig wallet. And it gives you a really quite serene sense of control over your money, because when it's in a super fund, you have no control. You can't touch it, you can't move it. It's at their whims. They do whatever they want with it. Whereas with the self-managed super fund and putting it all into Bitcoin, it's my Bitcoin. It's on my in my address, and I look after it, and I'm responsible for it, and I can do what I want with it. So
Yeah.
I actually bizarrely sleep better knowing that it's there in Bitcoin than I did, being perpetually worried that the arse is going to fall out of the stock market and have no control about being able to do anything about that. So
that was exactly my next question. Because I can imagine people listening to this thinking, oh my God, the crazy guy's just taken 100% of his super and chucked it into Bitcoin. But what your response to that is, I sleep better knowing that it's in Bitcoin.
It's mine. I look after it. I understand the volatility of it. Certainly the opportunity for growth is significantly better than a much more standard approach. Now my risk tolerance is clearly high, but you're talking about your funds that, in Australian law, you're not allowed to touch your superannuation funds. You're not allowed to start withdrawing them until you're 60 years old. Well, that's a good 15 plus years for me. So I can have a really good time preference around those funds. So my risk tolerance is great now. That may well diminish as I get closer to retirement and needing stability in funds. But quite frankly, between now and then, Bitcoin has all the opportunity in the world to mean that I could be retiring in 4 years or 8 years rather than 20 years.
And there's no one that's been in Bitcoin for 4 years that has ever lost money, ever.
No, exactly.
Which is it's an incredible statistic if you think about it.
Yeah,
there's nothing that could compare with that.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
so it's just about.
I timed nicely with this. I was that 6 week cycle of setting up the self-managed super fund. I'm like, oh my God, why is this taking so long? Because the market was coming off of 65,000. And it was dropping, and I'm like, buy opportunity. It's a buy opportunity, and it's coming down, and I'm going. I really wanted the process to hurry up, and as it worked out, I hit the almost near bottom of the dip at around 31,000, And that day, my money cleared. I was waiting and I'm like, shit, how do I actually move all of this money in one go to actually buy Bitcoin in one go? Because there are limits with bank accounts about how much money you can move around. So anyway,
and
there's
exchanges.
lots of those sorts of hurdles. Yeah, and exchanges. Although quite interestingly, the exchange I was dealing with, they had like a $5,000 or a $10,000 a day limit, and I phoned them up and said, "Look, I've got X amount of money," and they went, "Yeah, no problem at all," and just upped the limit. So, but I just timed it really nicely. So clearly, I think I'm a hero because I timed it well, but totally not my nothing to do with me.
I think you're a hero, Andy.
Then I saw like a 65% rise in my super in 2 months.
That's awesome.
Now you compare that and you extrapolate out what it would have been in a super fund that it was in, and I'm 4 years ahead of the game.
Yeah.
But you were going in with it. You're always going in with a long-term goal. So you're even if it had gone the other way on you, you wouldn't feel such a hero right now. But you still believe you'd still be comfortable with your decision.
Oh, and everyone I've talked to, I've said, look, it could have just as easily been 65% down as 65% up. So, it is what it is. But like I say, my conviction and my time horizon is much longer. So, if I look at the last 10 years of Bitcoin, how can anyone lose, really? Particularly everything that's going on macroeconomically. So that conviction is what's led me to the decision that I made. I clearly think I'm clever now, and I may well, have more gray hair as the bull market ends and the price drops and everything else. But actually, I think I feel convicted. Like I can see a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 drop in net worth in a matter of a couple of days, and it doesn't bother me. Yeah. Like it's weird. If you'd have asked me that a couple of years ago, I'd have been freaking out. Yeah. But it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it's a strange sort of what would I call it? Like I was commented on GG today. It was a FUD zen. It's like once you get to the point where you're really deeply convicted, you see all these things come through. It's almost enjoyable. It's
either number go up or it's a buy opportunity. That's all it is.
Yes. So
they said that on Simply Bitcoin this morning. Like today's episode was just epic. It's probably one of the best ones that they've done. But like they were saying, the Bitcoin community is probably the only community in the world that celebrates the arse falling out of the price. Like it's it's just a buying opportunity, like you say. It's like, oh my god, cheap sats, fantastic. Like it's not my net worth's gone down. It's just it's more cheap sats.
Yeah,
it's crazy,
man. I mean, I've thought about this, and I think you initially brought up the whole self-managed super fund thing with me before, but you've excited me to no end, Andy, to be honest.
But then you got to consider people's circumstances. Let me just qualify that for me. People's circumstances are different, right? People are different ages. They've got different risk profiles. They might have 5 kids. They might have 2 kids. They might have no kids. They might be a single person on a huge salary. So you got to make the decision that is correct for yourself, and only you can make that. But I just think listening to the different stories and listening to why people made the decisions they made, and that if it had gone other way, you'd still feel comfortable. That's the big thing. Like.
I mean, I didn't have to put 100% in. No. You can do a self-managed super fund, and you can go and put 75% of your funds into an ETF or a set of ETFs or whatever you like, really. Go buy property with it. You do whatever you want. I just, for me, it would feel like leaving money on the table if I didn't put it all into Bitcoin.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. I mean, the money I worry about is the money that's not in Bitcoin. Not the money.
That's exactly what I'm saying. The fact that it's now in my multi-sig, setup and under my control. I know it's secure. I've got mechanisms and security for managing all of that and making sure that it's if anything ever happened to me, that it's it finds its way to the right. To my kids and everything else, then all of that stuff's taken care of. And I'm sleeping better at night because I'm not worried about the stock market crashing and stocks, doing weird shit and my super fund, crashing by God knows how much. Even if that happens with Bitcoin, I just have the long-term conviction that I know it recovers, sensibly, or I sleep better for sure.
Yeah.
So let's say that continues to grow like we all think it's going to do. How does that affect your life? I mean, hopefully you're doing a job that you quite enjoy. But once you have this sort of choice of doing whatever you want to do, have you thought about that?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I do love my job. I always have. And, it's a big part of your life. There's no point doing a job you hate because, why bother? So I'm lucky with that regard. I think, my super fund's one thing, and, you get paid your contribution every month. Mine actually comes in, on a fortnightly basis. And I'm DCAing my super fund, fortnightly, which is just such an amazing feeling.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, that money was previously just going into, my super fund, and who knows what happened to it. But I'm actually actively DCAing into my super fund, which is awesome. As well as, my personal stack. And, that's something I focus hard on, making sure that I'm putting every spare dollar into that and saving hard for the future. And I hope that, it's that frees me from having to do a day job and enables me to, do whatever I want to do with my future life, and, build a property on some land or something like that. And make the most of the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So hopefully my personal stack does that. The super stack is, ultimately to make sure I have an extremely comfortable retirement, and, it's future wealth for your kids. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I daily DCA now, not into super. I just, I haven't made that leap yet. But I not with any more money than I used to. I just split it over the days rather than the weeks, or whoever I was previously. And I still do go in and smash from time to time just because I enjoy that side of it too. And I think I'm, trying to be smart, and I'm never that smart. I usually lose. But I did an exercise a couple of months back to see if you just actually built up your fiat for a while and then smashed on days when you had a 5% drop, would you have actually got further ahead? And you'd obviously have to set up an order every day and whatever just to try and catch it. And the answer is no. The answer is no. You still, right. you win on a daily season. So what Bitcoin actually, I went back to maybe 3 years worth of data or something. And what it actually does, just looking at the trend of not always, but often, is it'll have a down day and then it'll have another down day. So you actually blow your money on the first down day. If you'd have held for another day, you would have actually done better. So I didn't ever go back and look at this, if you do it on the second day after, you get 5% down days or 10% down days in a row or something, not that you get many 10s anymore, but it's really interesting. And doing that is a huge amount of work and a huge amount of stress. And, you're putting on orders every day and canceling orders and whatever, and, spending a load of time. Whereas if you just set and forget daily DCA, you remove the biggest issue in the formula, and that's yourself, because you believe you can beat it.
I do it kind of differently. I completely agree. I do it kind of differently because I really enjoy hitting the buy button and recording how much I've bought and putting it in the spreadsheet and seeing the stack grow and all of that stuff. So I auto deposit into an exchange whenever. But this is my point as to why I'd be terrible with shitcoins, because if I've got cash in my exchange account, I can't help but spend it all immediately. Like if I got $200 on the exchange, I've got to buy Bitcoin right there and then. It doesn't matter what the price is doing.
Yeah,
I couldn't wait that extra day. I'd never wait that extra day because I'd be sat on that $200 going, oh, should I push the button? Like I want to buy it, and I can't help it. Like literally, as soon as the money hits the account, the trading account, I just have to hit buy. Like I can't muck around. I can't trade. I'm just drawn to
market buy
straight away. Yeah, just market price. Like at the end of the day, it's probably, what, a couple of hundred sats either way, or whatever it might be between 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. Or if you set an order and you want to get it for that order, well, sod's law, the price is going to go up. So that's why I just market buy. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, that's yeah.
I never have a good time with setting limits and orders.
No, because because greed. Well, patience and greed. You want to set an order. You think, I'm going to beat everybody else today. And once in 5 years or 6 years, I've managed to be like the lowest of the day.
Yeah,
that's about and once, of hundreds of buys once.
Yeah,
and so
for me, it's just a sugar hit of another 100,000, 200,000 sats, and like, great, move it off to cold storage.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the only bit that I try to be patient with is not moving it off. Every time I try and build up to a certain amount before I move it off, just to diminish the on-chain costs of moving it. But other than that, can't help myself.
How about Lightning, Andy? Have you experimented with Lightning at all?
Yeah, so like I said, I've set up my own node and started moving some sats into that. I still don't feel like the UI's simplistic enough for me. I do find it all a bit complicated, and opening channels, and I got to the point where I'd opened a channel, but then it's all loaded on my side and not their side, and then you have to go through other mechanisms to make sure you've got two-way channels, and so I'm kind of not quite there technically yet. I'm hoping InStrike launches in Australia sooner rather than later, because that seems like the simplest, easiest way to buy and move funds around. So Jack Mallers clearly has a grander plan in place to not be charging for doing all of that stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. But so I'm really interested by it all and how it's all growing, and the amount of Bitcoin that's locked up in Lightning now, it's growing like exponentially. It's really fascinating to watch. But at the moment, there's not much that I need to buy with Bitcoin, and I don't really intend on buying much. I'm like I said, I'm stacking and holding. So I'm sure that will change over time, and I'm sure the UI will improve just generally around Lightning, that I won't have to worry about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I use a custodial Lightning wallet. I use Blue, and only just for playing around with, really, and just for introducing. I like to do the demonstration for people. It can convince people far better than I ever could. A friend of mine has a young son who keeps bees, and they farm honey, and I want buy his honey, and I've been giving him $20 for his honey for however long, and last night we agreed it the other day, but last night for the first time I sent him $20 worth of Bitcoin via Lightning, and I just to watch his face, and he got it.
Nice.
He got it straight away.
He's a gamer kid too.
Well, a little bit, but the gamers I think will get it immediately.
Yes.
Because they can see the value of the digital currency, whereas your boomers struggle with that.
Yeah.
But the gamers will get that side of it quickly. But yeah, I mean, I don't use it for anything much more than that. But I think to give people just a little taste, and then they can go off on their own little tangent and come back to me with something that I don't know. I love that side of it.
So you're going to keep buying that honey or giving him Bitcoin for honey?
Well, what I did last night, I had a 20. So I spent $20, and so I said, I held up the $20, and I just said, what would you prefer? You want your first Bitcoin, or do you want the $20? And I let him make the call.
How old was he?
He's 14, I think.
That's good.
14.
That's cool. Cyber Hornet honey. That's what you should call it.
Cyber honey, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just my daughter's. Just give me 5 minutes. Here.
Oh, of course, mate.
All right, I'll come down in 5 minutes. Okay. Cool, all good.
No worries, mate. How are we going for time? How are you for time?
We're probably.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're nearly an hour. So.
How who's like a Bitcoiner that you've found to be helpful, or channels, or that you would point somebody else to, like either Twitter or maybe a pod or maybe a YouTube channel or something, or writings? Who was helpful for you?
I've mentioned it a few times, but Simply Bitcoin's they knock it out of the park.
That's the one.
Yeah, just every single day. I mean, they're covering macroeconomics, but it is just about Bitcoin. They highlight they do like a bunch of segments in their pod. So they have the daily fail, which is usually some shitcoin scam that has gone sideways, and then the daily meme and the daily news. And it's a really nice format that's, never it's always about 45 minutes to an hour or less. And, they have fun doing it. It's just really interesting. They're sponsored by Crypto Cloaks and guys like that. So it's really interesting content and very easy to engage with. It can be pretty hardcore. Like I said, today's episode was pretty hardcore, but those guys are pretty awesome. Stefan Liviera, obviously, being an Aussie as well. I think his content's amazing. Some of the more technical stuff I struggle with a little bit, but just generally speaking, it's very good. And from a macroeconomic perspective, Preston Pish just blows me away. Yeah. Just really enjoy his discussions and the people he talks to, and probably more recently, just for fun factor and depth of knowledge around credit, was Greg Foss is hilarious. So
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, he's come in all guns blazing, has Greg.
Yeah.
He's good. He's entertaining, but he doesn't miss anything at the wall. So
that's why I like the Schiff versus Foss on what Bitcoin did the other day.
I actually didn't watch that episode because I just see very little value in listening to Peter Schiff.
No, so we talked about this. We talked about this last pod. I actually find it comforting watching Peter Schiff. I don't know why.
I didn't watch it. I couldn't.
Oh, listening. So I listened, but I find it comforting to hear how out of touch he is.
I think it's all an act. I think he's perfectly well aware of the stance that he's taking. Clearly, his son's all into Bitcoin, and so I think it's all just an engagement act. I don't think
maybe
guarantee he's got a massive stack.
You reckon?
Without a shadow of a doubt, he's not stupid.
It's so disappointing. I always struggle with whether somebody is just sort of totally ignorant or just willfully deceptive.
Yeah,
and I can never pick it.
He's engagement farming. That's all it is.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Same as I think I wrote a post the other day or tweet the other day. Greg Foss is brilliant at ripping into Steve Hanke, the lecturer in the States. Like, I find that constantly hilarious. But if you look at any of Hanke's posts, all of the engagement is Bitcoiners, calling him out and just telling him like how disingenuous and what a load of bullshit he spouts. Now, why does he write it all? Like, would you write that much stuff that you just constantly get abused? And he doesn't. He doesn't respond to anything. Like, it's, I think I posted up a meme around self-flagellation. It's like, are you doing this for fun, or you just like people shitting on you? Like, it's very strange behavior. But
it's funny to see the so-called intellectuals really struggling with it. And I think for me, it comes down to people having to admit that a lot of what they've, the value they've amassed in their life so far has been based on a lie. And it's very, very, all of us, not just, all of us. So it's very difficult to admit that to yourself. But once you have, and it's very easy to do, like, practically, it's just it's a 10-second thing. And then you move on with your life. But
it's also why sort of break the status quo for them if it's the lie has worked so well for them for so long.
Well, it's the gold bugs.
Why would they? Why would they want to change it?
The gold bugs have been right this whole time.
Yeah,
right up until the point when it matters.
Right up. Yeah,
it's pretty tough, right?
Right up until now.
Right up until now.
All right, well, I think it might be enough. Thanks for your time, Andy. That was awesome. Once you got more to
just where would people go, Andy? Where would they go find you if you want them? If you want that at all?
AP_Bitcoin on Twitter.
Okay.
Awesome.
Perfect. Well, it's lovely to actually meet you for the first time, and we'll
likewise
hopefully do this again.
We'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Andy.
Mate, really appreciate it. You have a good evening.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Take it easy,
mate.
you too. Bye.